Continuation of the Saturn Myth, Part 3. And where we left off at was the enclosed sun. When Saturn appeared alone in the cosmic waters, a brilliant band congealed around the god as a celestial island. This band was the original cosmos, often portrayed as a revolving egg, a coil of rope, a belt, or a shield enclosing the central sun. The sacred hymns and creation legends of ancient Egypt say that when the creator arose from the cosmic sea, a vast circle appeared around the god, forming the original place, the place of the primeval time, or the province of the beginning. This primeval dwelling was the island of Hetep, rest, a steadfast, revolving enclosure. Egyptian texts of all periods offer vivid images of this enclosure on the waters, called the Golden Pylon, the Island of Fire, the Divine Emerging Primeval Island, or the Island Emerging in Noon, Cosmic Waters. Diverse sources agree that the Island of Creation stood at the cosmic center and that it was the residence of the Creator himself, the central sun. Thus, while Osiris is the motionless heart in the Island of Fire, Atum, the stationary heart of heaven, is the sole one who is alone, who made his heart in the Island of Fire. In the following pages, I shall attempt to show that Egyptian sources depict the band as something seen, the god's visible dwelling in heaven. Indeed, the Egyptians and all other ancient races were so preoccupied with the Saturnian band that they elaborated a vast symbolism presenting the same enclosure under wide-ranging mythical forms. Yet, standard treatments of ancient myth and religion say little or nothing of the enclosure. And even less do writers on the subject seem aware that the pictograph of the enclosure sun is a straightforward portrait of Saturn and his legendary home. It is not for want of evidence that the experts have missed this connection. The only obstacle is the priori view of the researchers themselves, who presuppose that all references to the primordial light god can only signify the solar orb. In connection with our sun today, the ancient language of the enclosure will appear esoteric or meaningless. Of Ra, the coffin texts say, we honor him in the sacred enclosure. Ra is the sender forth of light into his circle. I am the one who is in his circle. He announces what could this terminology signify in relationship to the solar orb. Since our sun possesses no perceptible relationship to an enclosure or circle, the translators will likely ignore the terms or contrive a complicated metaphysical concept to explain them. Though the Egyptian hieroglyph for Ra is the circle with the sun, circle with the circle around it. So like a wheel within a wheel. That's probably the better way to explain it. Or the dot, or the eye. And though this sign, taken literally, immediately illuminates the foregoing references, no one seems inclined to take the signer, the text literally. To the enclosure around the sun, the Egyptians gave the name Aten, a term familiar to every student of Egyptian religion. Spacious is your seat within the Aten, reads the coffin text. One of Ra's titles is Aten, the dweller in his Aten. Both Atum and Horus possess the same title. Similarly, the Book of the Dead invokes Osiris, O great God who livest in thy divine Aten. Since the Egyptian pictograph of the Aten is the circle or the dot in the circle or just the circle itself, it should be clear that the term refers to a circular enclosure housing the sun god. But from the beginning, Egyptologists have attempted to explain the Aten as the sun itself, translating the word as the solar disk. Rather than clarify the Egyptian concept, such as translation, only confuses the sun god with his celestial dwelling. One Egyptologist, for example, states that the Aten was the sun, and that the sun was conceived as the window in heaven through which the unknown God, Lord of the Disk, shed a portion of his radiance upon the world. Having identified the Aten with the solar orb, the writer concludes that the God who resides in the Aten is an invisible God, Budge voices a similar opinion when he calls the Aten the material body of the sun, wherein dwelt the god Ra, as if Ra himself were an invisible power, and the solar orb, the visible emanation and dwelling of the god. It is impossible to reconcile such metaphysical interpretations with the concrete imagery of the Aten in the Egyptian texts. The Aten is indeed the visible window in heaven and the body of the sun, but this window or body is surely not the solar orb. It is, as the Aten sign indicates, a band housing the sun and the primeval sun of Saturn. The same misunderstanding occurs in the case of the Egyptian terms Ku and Kut. The terms refer to the circle of glory or the brilliant circle conceived as a fixed place, the place where the primeval sun shines forth, though the Egyptians regarded this circle as the visible emanation of the Creator. Standard translations render Ku as spirit or soul, implying an unseen power, and Kut as horizon, suggesting the place of the solar sunrise. Both translations violate the literal sense of the words. Literally, the Kut written with a sign is the Mount of Glory. The circle of the Ku or Kut was the glory, halo, nimbus, or areola of the Creator, what the Hebrews called the Shekinah, the encircling glory of God, and the Greeks Stephanos, circle or crown of glory. Indeed, every figure of the Creator stands within the luminous ring, always considered as his own emanation. The band is not only the God's halo, but his dwellings at the cosmic center. In Diagrams of the Cosmos, observes J.C. Surlop, the central space is always reserved for the Creator, so that he appears as if surrounded by a circular or almond-shaped halo. 8, the Mithric Saturn with surrounding halo. 9, Japanese Buddha with surrounding halo. All right. If one accepts the immediate sense of the archaic terminology, the enclosure was no abstraction. It was Saturn's shining band. The Babylonian Anu, Saturn, was the high one of the enclosure of life, his dwelling, the brilliant enclosure. Here too, the enclosure becomes the place of primeval sunrise. The Maori of New Zealand know the planet Saturn as Parura, whose name conveys the meaning circlet or surrounding band. From this name of Saturn, Stowell concluded that the natives could see the present Saturnian ring with the naked eye, something all astronomers know to be impossible today. When the African Dogon draws Saturn, they depict it as an orb within a circle, a fact which Robert Temple in his book, The Serious Mystery, cites as evidence for seemingly inexplicable Dogon astronomical knowledge, which he contends was introduced to the ancients by extraterrestrial visitors. But no one asks whether the order of the solar system may have changed, allowing for a once visible Saturnian band. The Lost Island. 10, the classical artists often portrayed the great god's halo or aura as an arced mantle or arced mantle. For the primeval enclosure, the Egyptians employed a variety of interrelated symbols. The circle of the Ku, or the Aten, was nothing other than the island of fire, the province of beginning. A single spell of the coffin text thus identifies Ra as the noble one who is at the land of the island of fire, but also calls Ra the god who is in his Aten. The subject is not two different enclosures, but one enclosure under two different titles. And this identification of the central sun as an enclosed or encircled god appears to throw light on the endlessly repeated myth of the lost island. What the Greeks called Ogygia, the island of Kronos, Saturn in the farthest north, occurs under many different names the world over. The White Island, the Floating Island, the Revolving Island. May not these primeval dwellings simply echo the Saturnian enclosure? One recalls the words of Dionysius of Halicarnassus: haste to the realms, rings of Saturn, shape your course. Your Cotyle's famed island wandering floats. on the broad surface of the sacred lake, the abyss. Not of our earth, the lost isle floated in the sea of heaven. Japanese legends recalled the ancient cradle of life as Onagora, a floating island, the drifting land, which congealed on the waters. This was the Isle of the Congealed Drop. Its location, states a native commentator, was originally the North Pole, from which it eventually moved to its present position. O'Neill properly relates the Japanese isle to the floating island of Delos, raised from the sea by Poseidon. Another name for this island was Ortergia, which O'Neill connects with the Latin verto, Sanskrit vart, to turn. Answering to the same tradition are the floating islands of the Argonautica, called the Strophades, or the Islands of Turning. In the voyages of the Celtic divine hero Malduin, the inventor encounters a fabulous isle in the midst of the sea. Around the island was a fiery rampart, and it was ever wont to turn around and about it. Examples are too numerous to receive elaborate treatment here. The primeval revolving islands of Rhodes and Corcyra spun on the cosmic spindle. The primeval isle of the Cyclos, wheel, which gave its name to the Cyclades, the white island of Zeus in the midst of the sea, the floating Hindu white island, Shweta Dwepa, at the polar center, the lost Toltec white island of Tula, the center of the world. Without exception, the shining, floating, revolving islands are esteemed as the place where history began and seem to answer to the same archaic tradition as the Egyptian province of the beginning, the revolving enclosure around the central sun. Is it possible that the ancients saw the mythical island, that the isle was not a geographical location, but a visible band enclosing Saturn? One must consider several closely related images, which also imply a visible band around the ancient sun planet. The egg. A hymn from the Egyptian coffin text reads, "I was he who came into existence as circle. He was the dweller in his egg. I was the one who began everything, the dweller in the primeval waters." Here the reference is to Atum as the creator of the egg, but other traditions say of the great god Ptah that he created the egg which proceeded from Num, the cosmic waters. In the Book of the Dead, the light god shines as the mighty one within the egg. Homage to thee, O thou holy God who dwellest in thine egg. As the stationary light god turns round about, his egg revolves around him. I am the God who keepeth opposition in equipoise as his egg circleth around. O thou who circlest round within thy egg, Atum, as governor of the revolving egg, is the Lord of time, for time is regulated by the motion around the egg, Clark tells us. Similar to the egg of Atum is the revolving sphere produced by the Orphic Chronos, time, who is Chronos, Saturn. The great Chronos fashioned in the divine ether, the fiery sea, a silver egg, and it moved without slackening in a vast circle. To this revolving egg compares that of the Society Islands creator, Taoro, the ancestor of all the gods, who sat in his shell in the egg revolving in endless space. (11) Ptah fashioning the world egg upon the potter's wheel. The same egg appears in Hindu myth. Set in motion by the central sun, Prajapati, Mauricia Iliade finds recollections of the cosmic egg in Indonesia, Iran, Phoenicia, Latvia, Estonia, West Africa, Central America, and the west coast of South America as well. Certainly none of the latter traditions improve upon the Egyptian texts which describe the egg as the enclosure around Atum Ra, but one could hardly fail to be impressed by the consistency of the tradition, and even the alchemists, much of whose teachings descended from Egypt, remember the connection of the egg with Saturn. They recall the egg as a fiery enclosure on the primordial sea, a circle with a sun point in the center, example, the solar dot. This world egg is the ancient Saturn, they say. Is not this cosmic egg the band which the Egyptians called Aten? O thou who art in thine egg, who shinest from thy Aten, reads the Book of the Dead. Just as the Egyptian god king is the ruler of all that the Aten encircles, so also is the powerful in the egg or ruling in the egg. In celebrating the primeval egg, the priests commemorated the island of beginnings. Budge summarizes the Egyptian tradition. The first act of creation began with the formation out of the primeval watery mass of an egg, wherefrom issued the light of day, example, Ra. Concerning the identity of this egg and the island or province of the beginning, the text from the temple of Edfu removed all doubt. Another name for the province of the beginning was the island of the egg. Egyptian sources thus suggest this equation. I-10, enclosure of the central sun equals cosmic egg, the primeval island. The bond. To reside within the I-10 is to reside in the coil or the core. The hieroglyphs depict the I-10 as a cosmic bond or knot, indicated by an enclosure of rope with the ends tied together, the shin. Thus, shin, coil, bond, may be written with the determinative solar dot, the I-10 sign. The bond signifies both a boundary distinguishing the unified domain of the universal monarch from the rest of space, and order marked by ceaseless stable revolution around the central sun. It is the bond of regularity, Shis or Mayat, protecting the God King from the surrounding waters of chaos. Accordingly, the Egyptian king, considered as the incarnation of the universal monarch, takes up symbolic residence within the celestial court, acquiring the great God's power as ruler of all that the I-10 encircles. The priest indicated this power of the terrestrial ruler by placing his hieroglyphic name within the shin coil. And in order to accommodate longer names, they eventually expanded the coil to an ovoid form, which yielded the familiar royal cartouche, in which the names of all later kings were inscribed. Of this cosmic bond or not, the hieroglyphics offer many signs. Among them, you see the different coils, knots, signs, all representing the same thing, but each possessed the same root meaning as a protective boundary defining the original dwelling of the Creator in heaven. The symbols conveyed a sense to circumscribe, to set the bounds. The Creator, as the measurer, prescribes the limits and measures out the sacred enclosure by stretching the core round about, producing a unified dwelling, the primeval island, protected from the evils of chaos and darkness. That the ancient myth makers conceived Saturn's enclosure as a core binding together the gods' dwelling will explain why the Babylonian Ninurta Saturn holds the Markusu, or bond of the cosmos. Langton writes, the word Markoso, band, rope, is employed in Babylonian philosophy for the cosmic principle which unites all things, and it is used also in the sense of support. The divine power and law which hold the universe together. The Orphic poet thus celebrates Saturn, Kronos, as father of the blessed gods as well as man, you who hold the indestructible bond. It is easy for contemporary writers to speak of Saturn's bond as an invisible principle holding the universe together. But in the original symbolism, one sees the bond as the shining boundary of Saturn's dwelling, the true cosmos. It was not in Egypt alone that the cord signified the edge or border. What the Greeks call pyrata, rope or bond, possesses the additional meaning boundary. The Latin ora, cord, means also edge. A similar meaning attaches to the noose of the Hindu Varuna and Yama. The bond delimited and protected the sacred space occupied by the universal monarch, and its connection with the sign links it directly with Saturn's island egg. The garment myth-making imagination also appears to have conceived the Saturnian band as the god's girdle, collar, or belt. I am the girdle of the garment of Nu, shining, shedding light, states a hymn from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. The great God is the girdle and the mighty one, coming forth triumphantly. A common hieroglyphic determinative of the girdle or collar is the cord sign, the shield. All creation legends involve a struggle between light God and the destructive powers of the abyss, chaos. The mythic enclosure provides the god's defense against the turbulent waters which originally prevailed. The Egyptian enclosure states raiment had the function of protecting the sacred area from the evil coming from outside. Aten was one of the numerous Egyptian names for this defensive rampart in heaven. The Aten makes thy protection, states the Litany of Re. The cosmic egg serves as the same fortress. I am Horus, whose protection was made within the egg. The fiery blast of your mouths, the fiery water of chaos does not attack me. The band of Aten, as the protective boundary, was the great god's shield, fending off what the text called the fiends of disorder. It is this mythic history of the band which explains why in the hieroglyphs, the shield sign signified sacred space in general. All who resided within the shield's enclosure occupied the safe and stable ground. And here's the shield for those who want to see. Looks just like the X, the key in Greek. 12, Mexican divinity holding a revolving cord shield. Once again, you see the cord shield. Then you see the cross in the middle. All right. Cord, belt, and shield converge. The Great Father wears the cord as a girdle. It protects him as a shield, not merely in Egyptian symbolism, but in the international language of symbols. Why, for example, did divine figures from Babylonia to Greece to Mexico wear a sacred belt of rope? And why was the belt conceived as an impenetrable defense? Mexican illustrations of the divine shield show it to be nothing more than a circle of rope. It was certainly not practical experience which suggests the magical powers of a shield so conceived. But the mythical imagery of the enclosed sun is quite sufficient to explain such anomalies. The great god's shield and the celestial cord signified one and the same protective enclosure. If the ancients actually saw a band around Saturn, it is clear that the enclosure fostered diverse but interrelated mythical interpretations. A literal reading of Egyptian and other texts will confirm an extraordinary equation. Enclosure of the central sun equals primeval island, equals cosmic egg, which equals cord, bond, which equals girdle, belt, kata, which equals shield. Concerning the overlapping images, much more needs to be said. The signs and the myths become comprehensible only when one relates them to the heavens of ancient times. Celestial island, egg, cord, girdle, and shield mean nothing more than a shining, revolving enclosure around the great god. Was this band real or imaginary? The question could be answered by exploring certain other aspects of the enclosure. The cosmos and the divine assembly. The sign of the enclosed sun portrays a circle of secondary lights revolving about the stationary god and forming Saturn's cosmos. The mystic traditions of the Great Father present an apparent paradox. He is the God one, the solitary God in the cosmic sea, yet he is the all-embracing, a company of lesser gods. This is not a contradiction. In the first phase of creation, the God brought forth a circle of secondary lights. These issued directly from the God to become his visible limbs. It is the fundamental character of the God one, the heaven man, to unite in a single body all the secondary powers of the cosmos. In Pythagorean, Neoplatonist, and Gnostic systems, the primal figure is the one, the all, whose symbol is enclosed sun. Hindu mysticism offers the latter sign as the image of the primordial unity, and the same interpretation is repeated by the alchemists. Today, one naturally thinks of the all as a boundless space. The terms which translators render as cosmos, heaven, firmament, sky, or universe suggest to the modern mind a limitless arena of the sun, moon, planets, and constellations. But the original meaning of the all is a bounded space, a place, the place, or place par excellence. The cosmos simply means the province of the God one, who, as Lord of the all, governs and is the whole in its parts. Having overlooked this restricted sense of the terminology, the translators replaced the concrete meanings with ambiguity in the guise of modern-sounding metaphysics. The once visible dwelling of the central sun thus becomes, in the translations, all existence. Almost without exception, the translators failed to notice: 1, that the creator was Saturn, recalled as the central sun, and 2, that the sign of the central sign and the sign of the all were the same image. Let me repeat that too, that the sign of the central sun and the sign of the all were the same image. The true cosmos were Saturn's enclosure, and nothing else is necessary in order for one to understand the ancient characterization of Saturn as the heaven man whose body encompassed the cosmos. When Hildebert Louis reports that the Sumero-Babylonian priests of Saturn regarded the planet god as the embodiment of the whole universe, the modern mind boggles. Could the ancients have been so frivolous as to identify Saturn, the present, barely discernible point of light, with the whole universe? The answer is that Saturn was not a mere speck of light, but a gigantic globe at the polar center, and the universe did not mean the open heavens, but Saturn's dwelling, the Anki, or the band of the cosmos. Saturn's towering form filled the Anki. Zoroastrian texts described the original cosmos as the body of Zervan, time, and Saturn, a revolving wheel called the sphere, which remained ever in the same position. The fall of the stationary wheel coincided with the collapse of the primordial era. The image suggests not unlimited space, but the tangible configuration of the enclosed sun. Accordingly, the later mystic traditions, as reviewed by Jung, describe the image of the solar disk as the cosmic form of Adam, the anthropos, the original man or man on high, identified as Saturn. Always the body of this primal man means cosmos. The interrelated myths and symbols of Saturn's cosmos receive remarkable clarification in the creation accounts and the liturgies of ancient Egypt. Though I briefly touched on the Egyptian texts in earlier discussions of the heaven man, amplification is necessary. The circle of the gods. Whether called Atum, Re, Osiris, Horus, Khepera, or Ptah, the Egyptian great god sits enthroned within a circle of secondary deities, satellites of the central sun. The gods are the glorious ones, never resting ones, or living ones. The circle of fire, divine chiefs, apes of dawn, holy ancestors, or revolving ones. The followers of Horus, the followers of Ra, or the followers of Osiris. While the divine assembly possessed many names, its singular character stands out in the texts of all regions. There is no Egyptian company of the gods other than that which revolves around the central sun, a fact uniformly ignored by writers on Egyptian religion. The text repeatedly confirms the same relationship of the assembly to the great god. This is the circle of gods about Ra and about Osiris. The satellites of Ra make their round, thy followers circle about. Ra maketh his appearance with the cycle of gods about him. His Ennead, circle of gods, is around about his seat. I am Ra amidst his Ennead. Go ye around about me, O ye gods. Hail to you, tribunal, O you who surround me. Divine is your name in the middle of the gods. These gods shall revolve around about him. Glorious is your Sa, brilliant form in the midst of the living ones. These are the stars who surround Ra. When it is light, all faces adore him. The brilliant one, he who arises, shines in the midst of his Ennead. The dilemma for the solar mythology is obvious. Seeing the references to the great god in the above lines, no one would think of denying that the subject is a visible power, which all presume to be our sun. But the descriptions of the gods' revolving companions are equally explicit. To what visible powers do they answer? No circle of lights appears to revolve about the body we call sun today. Egyptian descriptions of the celestial assembly take us back to the remote age, separated from the present by a wide chasm. Every Egyptian cult possessed mythical accounts relating to the birth of the divine assembly in remote times. Despite numerous versions of the legend, it is impossible to ignore the coherent pattern From a study of the numerous fragments, I offer the following reconstruction and interpretation of the myth. In the primordial epoch, the creator first appeared in the abyss, alone, wandering without a resting place. I found no place to stand. I was alone, states the god. After his appearance, the god uttered words, and these utterances possessed a visible form as the Comparative. The first things created the Comparative came forth from my mouth. These visible words flowed from the Creator as the waters of chaos, the sea and heaven upon which the Creator floated or wandered. To reckon with the tradition in its own terms, one must think of the primordial sea as a fiery ocean of words, and heaven emitted by God in a prolonged and resounding explosion. An Egyptian term virtually identical to Keperu is Pati, often translated as primeval matter. The Pati issued directly from the Creator in the form of radiant speech, forming a fiery, watery mass. The Creator brought forth the primeval matter and paradoxically produced himself in it. I produced myself from the primeval matter which I made. For a time, the Creator wandered in the luminous sea, but eventually came to rest at a point of stability, the cosmic center. Two events followed. An island congealed around the god as his place of rest, and the circle of the gods came into being, embracing the Creator. The two events are synonymous. From the unorganized sea of words, the Keperu or Pati, the Creator brought forth an organized dwelling. He gathered the enclosure together as a barrier against the watery chaos which he himself had created. The fiery particles of the newly formed enclosure composed the circle of the gods. That is, the gods stood on the enclosure's edge or border, the shore of the celestial isle. In one text, these are the gods who belong to the shore. They give an island to the Osiris. This was the cosmos formed by the council of the gods who surrounded the island of fire. Vital to this interpretation of the myth is the identity of the divine assembly with the Keperu or the Pati uttered by the Creator. The secondary gods are themselves the shining words or names spoken by the Creator and organized into a revolving circle. Keperu thus means the revolving ones, while Pati signifies the primeval ones who inhabit and give form to the island of fire. What then do the texts mean when they say that the Keperu or Pati, though erupting from the Creator, produced a great God? The answer is clear-cut. The circle into which the constituent particles, visible words, congealed was the Creator's body. The God one, collected or gathered together his own limbs. I united my members. He produced himself. The coffin text depict the Creator alone in the primeval sea. I was he who had no companion when or until my name came into existence. I created my limbs in my glory. I was the maker of myself. Literally, the limbs which the God produced are my limbs of my coup. The phrase is of sweeping significance. An Egyptian sign of the coup was the hieroglyph. This, as you can see, this was the hieroglyph of the coup. The term an explicit reference to the Creator's circle of glory. A halo, aura, aten, means at once words of power and brilliant lights. Depicted by the hieroglyph is the island of creation around which are arranged the secondary deities, Ku, produced through the Creator's speech. In bringing forth this divine assembly, the Creator became the maker of his own body, Okapera, whose body is the cycle of the gods forever, proclaims the Book of the Dead. The same texts speak of the souls of the gods who have come into being in or as the members of Osiris. The entire symbolism focuses on the celestial form of the enclosed sun. Individually, the fiery lights which compose the enclosure, island of the cosmos, are the Creator's limbs, plural, but as a unified circle, the assembly forms his body singular. Correspondingly, the respective lights are the Creator's multiple names or words, the names of his limbs, while as organic whole, the all, the circle is the God's singular name. When the hymn cited above states that the God was alone until my name came into existence, the meaning is concrete, not abstract. The Creator remained alone until he brought forth the circle of the Ku. his visible name in heaven, that the God's name was his tangible dwelling, his circle of glory, is a fact absolutely essential to a comprehension of the enigmatic symbolism. I have made firm my name and have preserved it, that I may have life through it. The reference is to the enclosure of life, the island of fire, made firm at the stationary cosmic center, when the creator ceased to wander in the abyss. Thus, the hieroglyphic determinative of name, Ren, is the Shin sign, which looks like the coil rope, the sign of the celestial enclosure or circle of the Aten. To possess a name is to reside within the Aten. A single hymn from the Book of the Dead provides a remarkable summary of the related symbols. I am the great God who came into existence by himself. This is Nu, who created his names, Pa Neteru, as God. Who then is this? It is Ra, who created the names of his limbs. There came into existence in the form of the gods, who are in the following of Ra. Who then is this? It is Tim, Atum, in his Aten. The self-generated God in the above lines is Nu, whose hieroglyph, take a look at the hieroglyphs. This one right here look like Aquarius sign, identifies him as both the source and the substance of the cosmic waters. The text says not only that the great God created his names, but that these names are the Pa Neteru, the circle of the gods. But why is the assembly called the Pa or primeval matter? It is because the revolving gods erupted directly from the creator, eventually forming the organized enclosure. The secondary gods, as words or names spoken by the creator, composed the God's own limbs, so that the text can say that God created the limbs of his limbs, that these came into existence in the form of the gods who are in the following of Ra, means simply that they formed the revolving assembly. Who then is this God who shines within the circle of his own limbs? It is Atum in his Aten. The priest could not have stated more emphatically the equation of the celestial assembly and enclosure of the primeval sun. Here is the formula set forth by the Egyptian text. Cosmos, enclosure of the central sun, equals primeval matter, cf. words, in its organized form equals circle of the gods. The limbs, which equals limbs or body of creator, which equals the creator's visible name. That the circle formed by the divine assembly is the cosmic dwelling of the creator is a truth confirmed not by one local cult alone, but all streams of Egyptian ritual. Below, I list a few of the Egyptian words that connect the assembly with the enclosure of the central sun. Ku, in the creation as noted above, the Ku erupt from the creator as words of power or brilliant lights. This circle of glory, the body of Osiris or Ra, encompasses the God's celestial home, the Aten. Thus, Kus means to fashion a dwelling. All right, 13, the body of Osiris forming the circle of the Tuat, the cosmos. Tuat, the term refers to the resting place of the creator at the summit. The hieroglyphic symbol of the Tuat, you see the 5-pointed star in a circle, or wheel, shows the light god within a celestial band, which the texts equate with the circle of the Aten. The mysterious soul which rests in its Aten rests in the Tuat of Ra. In the hymns and in art, the Egyptians depicted the Tuat as the body of Osiris or Ra. But Tuat means also the circle of the gods, the enclosure, the body of the sun god, and the divine assembly are synonymous. Shin, Shinit, Shiniu, Shinbet, the Shin signs and the coil portrayed the central sun's enclosure as a cord of rope, the bond of the cosmos. Shin means to revolve, in reference to the revolving band of the Aten. The Shin sign and the Aten sign function as interchangeable glyphs. Hence, the Shiniu is the great god's cosmic chamber, while the Shinit or Shinit are the chiefs or nobles on high who travel to circle around the Shin. Shinbet, meaning body, is the bet or place. Summit, place marked out by the Shin, Again, enclosure, body, and assembly converge. Tachat or the Tachat are the chiefs or heads the council of gods revolving around the stationary sun. But Tchat also signifies boundary, enclosure, or holy domain. The circuit traversed by the chiefs is the boundary of the celestial enclosure. Rur, Riri, or Wert, while Rur means to revolve or encircle, Wert means men, the inhabitants of the primordial domain. The Rari are the revolving ones, comparable to the Kaperu, who collectively enclose the sacred space. Accordingly, Rur possesses the additional meaning, the enclosed domain. Pat, Pat. The secondary gods are the Pati, the primeval matter, which, as stated above, congealed into the creator's revolving dwelling. Pat thus signifies the creator's body, obviously related at the Pat are the Pat, the primeval gods whose names conveys the sense to go round like a wheel or in a circle. It is no coincidence that the hieroglyphic determinative of the Pat is an egg. The circle around which the Pat revolve is the egg of the cosmos, and this egg is the body of the god Seb. Tchat, Tchetu, while Tchat means to speak, Tchata signifies words, things spoken. In the creation, the great God uttered visible words in the form of the lesser gods. That the creator's words became his dwelling is reflected in the term Tchat, the house or chamber, or the great God. Tchat also means body. Shes or Shesi, an Egyptian name of the cosmic bond is Shes, written with the hieroglyphic upside down quarter rope. The Tuwa, dwelling of Ra or Osiris, is the Shes Maya, the bond of regularity, or of stable ceaseless revolution. The texts also speak of celestial Shisi, divine warriors who protect the great God. They protect the God because collectively they form the defensive rampart, the cosmic shield. The language and symbolism of the celestial assembly reveal an underlying idea connecting the separate traditions. The secondary gods are not merely ill-defined companions or assistants, as so many Egyptologists seem to consume. Rather, they possess concrete form as the enclosure of life, the very enclosure which the priests celebrate as the island of beginnings, the revolving bond, or the cosmic egg, all figures of the cosmos. The cosmos, in other words, has nothing to do with all existence. The concept relates to an organized domain, the whole and its parts, fashioned by the creator out of previously unorganized cosmic debris, primeval matter. An Egyptian word for the unified domain is tem, which means all or complete, and also to collect, to gather together, to gather and together. Clearly related is the word Timtiu, one of the names of the secondary gods. It is the secondary gods themselves that the creator collects or gathers together to form the cosmic island. Pertaining to the same root concept are the terms Tima, to unify, join together, Timi, shore, bank, or border, and Timan, all, totality. The unified all cosmos is contained within the border of the enclosure, and the border is the shore of the cosmic island. The Saturnian band is thus the pathway traversed by the secondary gods. The gods revolve around the shore, or around the bond, or around the egg. Every god who is on the border of your enclosure is on the path, states a coffin text. The testimony cannot be more explicit. The road traveled by the secondary gods is the Uat, the way or the path. The testimony cannot be more explicit. The road traveled by the secondary gods is the Uat, the way or path, denoted by the glyph, but the same glyph signifies the tacher, boundary, the path. Gods and the boundary of the unified cosmos, the all, are synonymous. Thus, the phrase or tacher to the tacher or tcher or to the boundary means all, the whole. The great God as Neber-Tcher, he who rules to the boundary, is the ruler of the whole, lord of the revolving cosmos. It is the same. It is the same thing to say that he governs all that the I-10 encircles. The whole range of images challenges orthodox interpretations, but the symbolism of the cosmos and divine assembly reaches far beyond Egypt. Do not all supreme gods sit enthroned within the circle of secondary divinities? Ninurta, Kronos, El, Yama, Huang Ti, and every other Saturnian figure has his sons, counselors, spies, followers, assistants, or warriors seated around about him. The Mesopotamian sign is a self-evident image of the celestial assembly. It is this cosmos, not boundless space, which Saturn's body encompassed. What the mystics knew as the universe, organized within Saturn's bond or cord, Babylonia Martakasu, becomes meaningful only as the visible Saturnian band or circle of the gods. All right, now we get to the Great Mother. The sign of the enclosed sun also portrays Saturn, the generative seed within the womb of the mother goddess. As the female personification of the cosmos, the Great Mother is inseparable from Saturn's body. The mysteries of the mother goddess give rise to an endless debate. What is the fact in nature which will explain the cosmic union of Isis and Osiris, Tammuz and Ishtar, or Cronus and Gaia? One scholar after another puzzles over the goddess' varied forms, finding her everywhere and nowhere. If to one writer she is the fertile earth around us, to another she is the moon, and to another the universe, the sky, or the morning star. The diverse interpretation seems to suggest that there were many goddesses with a singular figure, the heavenly consort of the Great Father. Here, for example, is one statement offered as the words of the Egyptian goddess Isis to Apuleius. My name, my divinity is adored throughout the world, in diverse manners, in variable customs, and by many names. For the Phrygians, that are the first of all men, call me the mother of the gods of Pessinus. The Athenians, which are sprung from their own soil, Cecropian Minerva. The Cyprians, which are girt about the sea, Paphian Venus. The Cretans, which bear arrows, Dictinian Diana. The Sicilians, which speak three tongues, Infernal Proserpine. The Lucinians, their ancient goddess Ceres, some Juno, others Bellona, others Hecata, others Ramnusi, and the Egyptians, which are excellent in all kinds of ancient doctrine, and by their proper ceremonies accustomed to worship me, do call me by my true name, Queen Isis. And remember, the Egyptians all learned from the Berbers, all right? In their cosmic rites, the Egyptians seemed unwilling to distinguish Isis from such local figures of the Great Mother as Nut, Hathor, Mut, or Neith. Each local gods bore identical or similar epithets: the Eye of Ra, the Mother of Ra, the Lady of the Holy Land, etc. But if the ancients acknowledged a common personality of the goddess, what was that personality's underlying trait? There is one universal attribute. The great goddess possessed the form of an enclosure, a circle or womb, housing and giving birth to the Great Father. Newman perceived this trait when he describes the goddess' elementary character as the great round, or the world-containing and world-creating uterus. From his exhaustive study of the Great Mother, G.S. Faber concluded that every goddess appears as a protective enclosure sheltering the Great Father. Of this truth, there is no shortage of evidence. The god Tammuz sit within the womb of Tiamat, the mother of the hollow. Mother womb is the epithet of the Sumerian goddess Gula, while Ishtar's name means womb. Hindu sources describe the Great Mother as the Yoni or womb, and the Great Father as he enveloped in his mother's womb. Agni is the male god shining in the mother's eternal womb. Similarly, the Norse Odin is the dweller in Frigg's bosom. In Orphic doctrine and receptacle housing, the Great Father is the goddess Vesta. The Gnostics remember the old god as the Ancient of Days who dwelt as a babe within the womb. Among the majority, the Great Mother is the shelter maid or haven maid. Descriptions of the primeval womb show that the ancients recalled the goddess as a visible band, what Hindu texts called the golden womb and Babylonian, the jeweled circlet, a title of Ishtar. The imagery pertains directly to the enclosed sun. In Hinduism, the latter sign depicts the male seed point or bindu in the cosmic womb, states Alan Watts. The father is like the center, Nabi, of the circle, and the mother the circumference, Paramata, notes Agrawala, my bad. The same female symbolism of the enclosed sun occurs in European stone carvings discussed by VCC Column, that the Hebrews regarded the Shekinah, the creator's encircling aura, anima, or glory, as the mother, leads to the same conclusion. The great god's halo was his own spouse. Accordingly, the Tibetan ritual invokes the great god as the center of the circle, enhaloed in radiance, embraced by the divine mother. This conception of the Great Mother receives compelling support from ancient Egyptian sources. The Egyptian sun god has his home within the womb of his mother and consort, the Great Protectress. Of Ra, the Book of the Dead proclaims, "Thou shinest, thou makest light in thy mother." Elsewhere, Ra appears as the sun in the womb of Hathor. Osiris shines forth from the enclosure of his mother Nut. Homage to thee, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Prince of Princesses, who from the womb of Nut hath ruled all the world. The abode of Horus is his mother Hathor, whose name means the house of Horus, and the goddess Nekabet is said to personify the primeval abode of the sun. As earlier noted, the Egyptians portrayed the celestial dwelling as the Shin Ban, but the enclosure was really the womb of Nut, states Piankoff. Thus, the goddess Shantit takes her name from the Shin Ban. The mother goddess was not our earth, not the open sky, not the moon, but the dwelling of the central sun, the enclosure of Aten. My Aten has given me birth, states the god king. This direct connection of the mother goddess with the sun's enclosure will explain why the Aten sign, though serving as the glyph of Ra, also denotes mistress, in reference to the god's celestial consort. The god's mistress was his own emanation, his halo of glory or splendor. The priests who invoked the great god's Kut or circle of glory also celebrated the goddess Kut, who was the same circle. Residing within the enclosure, the central sun is the shining seed impregnating the great mother. I am indeed the great seed, declares Ra. O Ra makes the womb of Nut pregnant with the seed of the spirit which is in her, reads a hymn of the pyramid text. The same text celebrate the womb of the sky with the power of the seed of the God which is in it. And again, pressure is in your womb, O Nut, through the seed of the God which is in you. In his coming forth within the cosmic womb, the sun copulates with or impregnates the mother goddess, and this relationship expresses itself in the language. The Egyptian Neheb means to copulate, which Nehepu means to shine, though Bika denotes the coming forth of the sun. The same word means pregnant. Thus, the union of the primal pair is renewed daily or with each dawn of the central sun. But the same coming forth receives mythical interpretation as the birth of the light god. Nut is at once Ra's spouse and his mother, who bears Ra daily. I am exalted like the venerable God, the Lord of the great house, and the gods rejoice at seeing his beautiful comings forth from the moon of Nut. His birth is wonderful, raising up his beautiful form in the womb of Nut. Hail, prince who cometh forth from the womb, conception and birth are thus confused. The impregnating seed father is also the child. It is this equation which yields Ra's title as man-child. He is the prototype of the son who impregnates his mother, or the father who gives birth to himself. But the confusion does not end here, for the mother goddess as the great father's encircling aura is herself the emanation of the masculine power. The solitary God brings forth the womb of heaven unassisted. In this sense, the goddess is the great father's daughter, so that if one considers the entire range of possibilities, three relationships to the goddess, father, husband, and son, are united in one figure. Imagery of this sort runs through all of the religious texts of ancient Egypt. Amen-Ra is he who begets his father. The goddess Hathor becomes the mother of her father and the daughter of her son. Atum-Kaprer brought himself into being upon the thigh of his divine mother. In the ritual of Karnak temple, Ra's daughter Mut encircled her father Ra and gave birth to him as Khonsu. The same goddess is the daughter and mother who made her sire. Equation of father and son is explicit in the case of Osiris and his son Horus. The pyramid texts describe Osiris shining in the sky as Horus from the womb of the sky. The king is your seed, Osiris. O Osiris, you being potent in your name of Horus who is in the sea. The gods in the Book of the Dead recall the ancient times of Horus when he existed in the form of his own child. Because the terrestrial king symbolically acquires the attributes of the universal monarch, the rites show the local ruler uniting with the mother goddess and reproducing himself within the cosmic womb. He announces that he had been fashioned in the womb of the great mother, and after invoking the womb of the sky with the power of the seed of the spirit which is in it, then proclaims, "Behold me, I am the seed of the spirit which is in her. O Nut, it is I who am the seed of the God which is in you." Frankfurt deals with the subject at length, showing that the king's impregnation of the mother goddess in simultaneous birth in the womb was central to Egyptian ritual. The king enters her, impregnates her, and thus is born again by her, exactly as the great God himself. If the king receives his authority on earth through personification of the universal monarch, it is through the same identification that he attains the heavenly abode of the goddess upon death, taking up his residence within the sheltering womb as an imperishable one. And in hymn to Nut, King Pepi beseeches the goddess, "Mayest thou put this Pepi into thyself as an imperishable star. Mayest thou transfigure this Pepi within thee, that he may not die." Frankfurt comments, the notion of a God who begets himself on his own mother became in Egypt a theological figure of thought expressing immortality. The God who is immortal because he can recreate himself is called Kamutef, bull of his mother. The king aspires to duplicate the feat of the universal monarch, giving birth to himself in the womb of Nut. Though the divine marriage and its imitation in kingship ritual involve many complexities and enigmas, the underlying theme remains clearly defined symbolically. The king has his home in the cosmic womb. He simultaneously impregnates the goddess and is born by her. The source of the ritual is celestial, for it reenacts the first occasion when the great father, the fiery seed, took to wife the band of glory, which congealed around him. The sign of the primordial union is everywhere before us, but rarely recognized. It is the sign of the enclosed sun. Womb and thigh. In connection with the symbolism of the mother goddess, one notes that the womb is generally synonymous with the thigh or lap. When ancient reliefs depict the god or king on the lap of the great mother, they refer to the primeval union in which the father of the gods resides within the goddess' protective enclosure. An Assyrian tribute to Assurbanipal reads, "And meek babe art thou, Assurbanipal, whose seat is on the lap of the queen of Nineveh, Ishtar." Thus, the Sanskrit yoni, the female enclosure and dwelling of the great father, may be translated either lap or womb. The Latin word for thigh, femin or feminis, means that which engenders. A similar connection occurs in Egypt where Kapesh, thigh, means the womb of Nut housing Osiris or Ra. Many gods in Hindu, Greek, and European myth are thus born from the thigh, like the Egyptian Comparative, who brought himself into being upon the thigh of the divine mother. This overlapping symbolism of womb, lap, and thigh will be met more than once in the following sections: womb and cosmos. To identify the mother goddess as the band of the enclosed sun is to equate the goddess with Saturn's cosmos, the revolving company of the gods. The goddess Nut is the representation of the cosmos, states Piankov. Thus, while the Egyptian Kut signifies the circle of glory formed by the secondary gods, Kut also means the mother goddess. And though the Shenit are the princess in the divine circle, the goddess is Shentit. Both words derive from the Shen, the bond of the cosmos. All right, see 14, the man child on the lap of the mother goddess. See Cyprus, Egypt, India. I'm not sure what the middle one is right here. And the last one says the British goddess Gwen. The religious text confirm the equation. He is the one who coming forth this day for the from the primeval womb of them, the secondary gods who were before Ra. Reads the book of the dead. I have come forth between the thighs of the company of the gods. What the book of the dead calls divine beings of the thigh means celestial assembly, the secondary gods who collectively form the womb of cosmic genesis. But the interrelated symbolism does not stop here. Every Egyptian priest knew that the mother goddess was the revolving egg housing the central sun. Indeed, the hieroglyphic image of an egg at the end of the divine name means goddess. Of Osiris, the goddess Isis declares, his seed is within my womb. I have molded the shape of the god within the egg as my son, who is at the head of the Ennead. The god within the womb is the god within the egg, who was the god ruling the Ennead, circle of gods. By the same equation, the womb becomes the garment or belt girdling the son. The deceased king prays that he may be girt by the goddess Tayyid, or announces that my kilt which is on me is Hathor. In the case of the goddess Neith, the womb becomes the shield. The shield is the hieroglyph for Neith. Though the symbols of the primeval enclosures differ, each is presented as a form of the Great Mother whose entire character answers to the visible Saturnian band. The hermaphrodite. The great magical papyrus of Paris, dated around the first half of the 4th century AD, appears the oracle of Kronos. The recommended prayer invokes Kronos as the Lord of the world, first father, but also bestows on the god the peculiar title man-woman. Kronos is Saturn, the primeval sun. To what aspect of the god did this title refer? In Saturn, the primal male and female principles unite, yielding the hermaphrodite or the androgen. Few of the preeminent deities in antiquity are free of this duality. The Sumerian Anu, Ninurta, Tammuz, and Enki, the Hebrew El, the Hindu Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva, the Iranian Zarvan, the Mexican Quetzalcoatl, all reveal a female dimension. Their spouse is never wholly separated from their own body. The Egyptians esteemed Atum as that great he-she, while celebrating Amen as a glorious mother of gods and men. The Egyptian word for this primeval unity is Mut-Tef, or mother-father. From what has been established in the previous pages concerning the symbolism of the enclosed sun, there can be little doubt as to concrete meaning of the Mut-Tef. The word signifies the organized cosmos, the central sun and its enclosure, considered as the male and the female parents united in a single personality. The great father's body was also the God's spouse, the womb of heaven. This duality expression in the Egyptian term Ka, which may be translated either body or womb, the man-child Horus, who dwells in the womb of Hathor, is Kenti Kati, at once the dweller in the body and the dweller in the womb. The litany of Ra proclaims that the cat body of Ra is the great Nut, the mother goddess. Egyptian artists showed the body of Osiris forming the circle of the Tuat, the abode of Osiris or Ra. But every student of Egyptian religion knows that the Tuat house of rest was the womb of Nut. The hermaphrodite then personifies the original cosmos, which means Saturn and his visible dwelling. G.S. Faber, in his comprehensive study of ancient ritual, notes that the Great Father, the intelligent being, was sometimes esteemed the animating soul and sometimes the husband of the universe, while the universe was sometimes reckoned the body and sometimes the wife of the intelligent being. And as the one theory supposed a union as perfect as that of the soul and body in one man, so the other produced a similar union by blending together the husband and the wife into one hermaphrodite. With Faber's assessment, it is impossible to disagree, so long as one remembers that to the ancients, the universe cosmos meant Saturn's home, not a boundless expanse. That Saturn's cosmos acquired a dual character as the god's body and as his spouse is sufficient to explain the primordial father-mother. The hermaphrodite or androgen, Iliad tells us, is the distinguishing sign of the original totality, example, the all. Its customary form is spherical, he notes. We thus arrive at the following equation. Band of the enclosed sun equals cosmos, island, egg, cord, girdle, shield, circle of the gods, which equals body of the great father, which equals womb of the great mother. Chapter 5, the Holy Land. Ancient ritual, the world over, conceived the terrestrial ruler as the incarnation of the universal monarch. By the same principle, each local city or kingdom became a transcript of the god king's primeval domain. The sanctified territory on earth was laid out according to a cosmic plan, revealed in remote times. On this priority of the cosmic dwelling, all major traditions concur. A celestial Sumer and Akkad or Akkad preceded the organization of the actual Mesopotamian kingdoms, and such settlements as Eridu, Erech, Babylon, and Lagash took their names from a heavenly city occupied by the central sun. Every Egyptian town, Heliopolis, Heracleopolis, Memphis, Abydos, Thebes, Hermopolis, mirrored a prototype, a city in which the sun shone forth in the beginning. So did Egypt as a whole, according to ritual, reproduce the dwelling gathered together and unified by the Creator. Hebrew tradition knew a heavenly Jerusalem, which gave its name to the terrestrial city, and what the Hebrews claimed of their city, the Muslims claimed of Mecca. The Chinese declared their kingdom to be a copy of the celestial empire, and each capital city imitated the same plan. In unison, diverse traditions of the Near East, Europe, Asia, and the Americas recall a holy land, par excellence, founded and ruled by the Creator himself. From this Saturnian kingdom, every nation took instruction in the idols of kingship and in the proper organization of the sacred domain, the motherland. In the creation myth, the great god raised a circular plot of earth from the cosmic waters. The enclosure was Saturn's paradise, the kingdom of heaven, appearing as a vast wheel or throne turning about the stationary god. Saturn's earth. In seeming reference to the fertile soil around us, the Latin poet Virgil celebrates the mother of harvest and the mighty mother of men, but he gives the great goddess of fertility an intriguing title, Saturn's earth. Why Saturn's earth? The curiosity increases when one notices that the Sumerian and Anki and Inerta, all identified as Saturn, rule in the Ether. The translators render Ether as earth. So also did Chinese astronomy deem Saturn the planet of the earth, while the Phoenician Saturn is said to have dwelt in the center of the earth. The Egyptian earth god is Seb or Jeb. That is, writes Budge, the earth formed his body and was called the house of Seb. But if Seb's body was the earth, why did the Greek historian Plutarch translate Seb as Cronus, Saturn? What connection of the planet Saturn and the earth might have justified this identity? Of course, the common English translation earth naturally suggests to the modern mind an our planet suspended in space. But to the ancients, no such detached view was possible. They knew only a terrestrial region, however large or small. In archaic ritual, the terms which experts translate as earth mean literally land, place, province, and the only region which the ancients considered worthy of sanctification as the land was their own unified state or nation, all else belonging to the barbarians. But every sacred land, organized around a religious political center, proclaimed itself a copy of the primeval dwelling in heaven. Thus, the Egyptian Ta, often rendered as earth, refers first and foremost to the heavenly province of the Creator, the Ta'ah, pure land, Ta Nefer, beautiful land, Ta Sheta, mysterious land, and Ta Antet, land of life, or Ta great land. Such terms are synonymous with Ta Tuat, the land of the Tuat, the cosmic dwelling of Osiris or Ra. In naming terrestrial Egypt Ta, the Egyptians gave their homeland the name of the cosmic place par excellence. Ta signifies the cosmic dwelling gathered together by the Creator. That the Egyptians conceived the Ta as the body of Seb corresponds with everything we have learned of the primeval enclosure of equal significance is Seb's hieroglyphic symbol, the egg. The myths say that the egg of Seb is that from which the sun first shone forth. Example, it is the same as the revolving egg of Atum, the egg of the cosmos. This is so-called world egg has no connection with our planet, nor did the Sumerian Iker, Earth, denote our planet, as observed by Jensen, Langton, and others. The Iker appears as the celestial home of the Creator. Ott Joberg and E. Bergman state the identity bluntly. The Sumerians knew the celestial domain as the Ki, the place or the land, invoked as Ki Sekila or Ki Sekila, the pure land or pure place, the Ki Gal, great land. The Sumerian Ki was the Assyrian Asara, the supreme place. Rather than familiar geography, the term refers to the created land of cosmic beginnings. Thus, Isara, according to Jensen, was used with special reference to the earth as it appeared at the creation. Equivalent is the celestial land of Hindu myth or the pure land of the Buddhists. No greater mistake could be made than to seek a geographical location of this lost land. Ancient cosmology locates the primordial place, not down here, but at the celestial pole, the center and summit. In Egyptian thought, states Clark, the celestial pole is that place or the great city. Here dwells the master of the primeval place. When the God in the Coftan text proclaims, I am the creator who sits in the supreme place, the reference is to the polar abode, Clark tells us. Iranian astronomy drew on the same tradition when it designated the celestial pole as Ga, which means simply the place, the great one in the middle of the sky. In Iranian cosmology, it is Saturn who occupies the polar God place, just as it is Saturn who, in the form of the polar Am, rules the Sumerian pure place. Hence, one could properly call this domain Saturn's land or Saturn's province, and this simple relationship enables us to understand why the ancients, who regarded their own sacred territory as a duplication of the celestial dwelling, extolled the fertile soil as extolled the fertile soil as Saturn's earth. Egyptian paradise. A clarification of the Egyptian concept will help to illuminate the general tradition. One of the features of the Egyptian Ta land, which has encouraged its identification with our earth, is its mythical character as a garden or field of abundance. To reside in the Ta is to live in the garden of Hetep. Many descriptions of the primeval domain do indeed sound very much like terrestrial paradise. The land is filled with wheat or barley, and the inhabitants drink of beer and cool waters. In the Book of the Dead, the deceased king announces, I know the names of the domains, the districts and the streams within the garden of Hetep. There is given to me the abundance. The pyramid texts depict the deceased king drinking oil and wine and living off the bread of eternity and the beer of everlastingness. The Egyptians deemed the meadow of peace and plenty at once the ancestral land and the future home of those yet to pass beyond. Many writers, of course, recognize the Garden of Hetep as early, perhaps the earliest mythical expression of the lost paradise. Its underlying nature, however, has yet to be penetrated by the conventional schools. To anyone willing to consider the entire context of Egyptian evidence, it should be clear that the primeval land produced by the Creator and imbued with overflowing abundance was celestial. Those who attained the Garden of Hetep reached the heaven of the Creator. The deceased king in the pyramid text goes to see his father Osiris. He announces, I have gone to the great island in the midst of the Sektet Hetepet, Garden of Hetepet, on which the swallow gods alight the swallows are the imperishable stars. I will eat of what you eat, I will drink of what you drink, and you will give satiety to me at the pole. You shall set me to be a magistrate among the Ku, the imperishable stars in the sky of the north, the imperishable stars in the north of the sky, who rule over offerings and protect the reaped corn, who caused this to go down to the chiefest of the food spirits who are in the sky. Let us analyze this important text, which combines several Egyptian interpretations of the celestial garden. As used above, the term Hetepet signifies abundance or food offerings, so that the garden of Hetepet is the garden of abundance or garden of food offerings in heaven. Hetepet possesses a root sense of gathering together or uniting, much like Temet, collecting, gathering together, a meaning which is vital to the symbolism as a whole. Hetepet is, of course, inseparable from Hetep, rest, standing in one place. The garden of Hetepet is the garden of Hetep. One could reasonably speak of the garden as the dwelling of the rest and abundance. Example, peace and plenty, gathered together by the Creator. The symbolism is, as I shall attempt to show, much deeper than standard interpretations will suggest. In the midst of the celestial garden is the great island, whose inhabitants, the swallow gods, are the Akimu Seku, never corrupting ones, here translated as the imperishable stars. The Egyptians also called these divinities Ekemu Ertu, never resting ones, conventionally identified as circumpolar stars who, revolving around the polar axis, never sink beneath the horizon. But the foregoing text identifies these gods as more than stars. In the modern sense of the word, they are the Ku, words of power or the light spirits, which erupted directly from the Creator. There is a vast body of evidence to show that these secondary light gods were themselves the abundant food or offerings of the celestial garden, and that this is what the above hymn means when it speaks of the food spirits. The flowing beer or wine in the field of grain, wheat, barley, corn are, in fact, indistinguishable from the primeval sea of words, secondary words which sprang from the Creator, in which the great God gathered together to form the enclosure of the primeval island, his own body. On the great island in the midst of the garden of Hetepet, the fiery particles, Ku, Akumu Ertu, alighted, collectively forming the enclosure. If one myth, the god's shining words congealed into the island in another, the isle was produced from the luminous grain of heaven. The words of power, the grain, and the company of the gods represented interrelated mythical interpretations of the primeval matter ejected by the Creator. In the imagination of the Egyptians, the Creator collected the grain from the celestial field, sometimes called the Seket Sasa, or the field of fire, and produced the enclosure as the granary of the gods, the house of abundance which every king hoped to attain upon death. The grain served as the dough from which the Creator fashioned his dwelling, and is the crucial relationship which explains the interconnected meanings of the Egyptian term pop or pati, signifying at once the primeval matter, company of gods, and dough or bread. The Creator organized the company of gods, the grain, into a revolving cosmos, conceived as a celestial land of abundance. Primeval matter equals creative words, which equals secondary gods, which equals grain of heaven, dough or bread. In their ceremonies, the Egyptians reenacted the creation on a microcosmic scale by fashioning ritual dough, cakes used in offerings to the dead. These cakes of pot symbolize the created land or the earth, produced from the overflowing grain of heaven. Thus, the Egyptian ta means land. Ta also means bread or cakes. Such interrelated terminology pervades the Egyptian language. A review of this usage reveals two consistent principles. One, the lesser gods, children, servants, assistants coincide with the dough. The beer, the grain, which erupted from the creator. Prior to unification as the land or cosmos, the fiery particles compose the sea of chaos, and thus may be termed fiends or demons of darkness. Two, the organized dwelling. Land, city, place, domain coincides with the granary and the molded cake or bread of heaven. Here are a few of the many examples. The children of the great God are pert, things which appear, but pert also means grain. The text described the beer and the grain, the children as pert kiru, appearing at or as the words of the creator. Thus, while akib means to speak, ekabu signifies grain, and the inhabitants of the heavenly dwelling are the ekabiu. Similarly, seru means at once, grain, and princes or chiefs. Both uses are inseparable from ser, to command, and seru, flame. Properly understood, the grain and the princes refer to the same fiery material mythically perceived as the creator's flaming commands. Though heck signifies the ale or beer spit out by the creator, it also means to command. If aught is radiance or glory, compare ku, the same word signifies abundance. For aught derives from all children, aught children, the abundant wheat and barley example, the light spirits who glorify the creator are brought forth as the God's own offspring. Henu means the servants of the great God who go around about the Henu. Henui, excuse me, but Hindu also denotes abundance. The lush growth of the celestial abode is the hen, but the same word signifies the glory or majesty of the ruling divinity. From the notion that the celestial lights glorify the creator, it is a very short step to the idea that they praise him or sing prayers to him. Thus, hen means also to praise. Accordingly, the word taboo means abundance, but also prayers. One should not attempt to distinguish the prayers from the praying gods. Those who glorify the great God are the glory. So also does synonym mean at once abundance, to pray, adore. While grain is shirt, the related term shariu signifies the little gods. Finku means abundance, but the same word denotes the inhabitants of the celestial land. Ahu means food, but also the dwellers of the land. Hetepet means abundance, while the Hetepetiu are the secondary gods. Kifa is food, but the Kefitiu are the fiends of chaos, eventually organized into the unified dwelling. Betu means the grain or barley of heaven, but also the demons. Just as the secondary gods compose the limbs or members of the central sun, so does the grain. An Egyptian term for grain is atpet, manifestly derived from at, limb, and pet, heaven. The grain becomes the limbs of heaven or of the heaven man. Thus, nepu signifies limb or flesh, while neper means grain. The primeval bowl is nepert, example, the land formed from the grain. Gathered together by the creator, the grain becomes the enclosure of the primeval land, the granary, or the bread of the gods, symbolized by the dough cakes employed in the rites of the dead. Thus, while Shin denotes the bond or cord in which the great God dwells, Sheena means at once granary and body. The god's body encompasses the grain. Shinti also means granary, but the same word signifies garment. The garment, belt, girdle, collar is the organized band of grain. Symbolizing this celestial enclosure are the shins or sacrificial cakes. Pek is the name of the celestial land and the great god's garment. It equals land, equals Pek. But Pek also means the cake of the gods. Similarly, Sesher is the god's garment, while Sesher denotes the cake or bread of heaven. Kefinu or Kafinu is the name of the god's dwelling, while caffeine signifies the sacred cake. Nest means both grain and fire. The field of grain is the field of fire. In the rites, the grain is fashioned into the nest or sacrificial cake, but nest also denotes the throne of the creator. Creator's throne equals primeval land. The Benet are light spirits who accompany the creator, helping to term the related word Benut, signifying the matter or fluid for which erupted from the solitary god. This primeval matter forms the sacred cake. For cake or bread is Banu. Banner is the name of the created lamp, and it derives from the same root. The food spirits gathered together to form the primeval enclosure are the builders of the god's home. Thus, the beard which flows from the creator is a cat, but a cat also denotes a builder or mason. Example, one of the Akatu, who fashioned the celestial dwelling. The language repeats the same connections again and again. 1. Secondary light gods equal celestial abundance, grain, beer, etc. 2. Unified dwelling of God equals celestial abundance, grain, land, body, garment, beer, etc. Gathered into organized form, example as cake or bread. It is clear that in Egyptian ritual, the sacred cakes meant much more than mere bread. The cakes were symbols of the great God and his creation in the Garden of Abundance. The celestial prototype of the cake was the island of beginnings, which the creator organized from a previously chaotic sea of beer and grain. That the Egyptians conceived the unified land or celestial bread as the body of the creator is crucial to the symbolism in eating the cake or in drinking the sanctified beer. The initiates symbolically enjoyed the abundance of the primeval age, or what is the same thing, they consumed the body of the creator. I shall not distract from the present discussion by elaborating parallels in the later religious symbolism. The interrelated terminology identifies the primeval Ta land with the enclosure of the central sun. The Egyptians knew that the primeval garden lay within the circle of the Aten. Though makest thy creations in thy great Aten, reads the litany of Ra or Ra. Thus, the Egyptians denoted the garden of Ra by combining the Aten glyph with the glyph for garden. The significance of such imagery seems to have escaped mythologists. The lost homeland of Lobolor was the original dwelling of the sun god. Of the Egyptian Han or homeland, Raymond writes, the sun god was believed to operate from his birthplace. In its essential nature, the primeval sacred domain was the very place from which the radiance issued first. This sacred domain was the island of Ta, the celestial earth. Egyptian sources termed the created domain Neterta, the Holy Land or God's earth. Here occurred the primordial dawn. That is, it was from Neterta that the stationary sun shone forth. A hymn to Amun-Ra, for example, invokes the sun god as the beautiful face who comes shines from Neterta. No wonder that Egyptologists confuse this holy land with the terrestrial east, the place of the solar sunrise. The exact counterpart of the Egyptian Neterta is the Sumerian Del Moon, the clear and radiant dwelling of the gods, ruled by the universal monarch Enki. Del Moon, according to Sumerian hymns, is the place where the sun rises, and many thousands of miles from Mesopotamia, the natives of Hawaii recall an ancestral land, Tahiti Na, or a peaceful motherland, the tranquil land of dawn. So did the Hindus, Persians, Chinese, and many American Indian tribes conceive the lost paradise as the place of the sunrise. The world will. That Saturn, the primeval sun, first shed its light from the circle of the created earth will explain why the celestial land often appears as a great wheel revolving around stationary sun. It may be called alternately the world wheel, world meal, or chariot, and this turning wheel of the Holy Land is consistently represented by the signs. And Hindu descriptions of the cosmic wheel affirm that the ancient sun stands at the center as the Chakravartin, or wheel turner. From the stationary pivot of the wheel, the universal monarch directs the movement without participating in it himself, states Guanam. On the Buddhist iconography of the world wheel, Kumaraswamy writes, he chose, or he whose seat is on the Lodi form, knave of the navel of the wheel, and himself unmoving, sets and keeps it spinning, is the ruler of the world, for all that natured and extended in the middle region between the essential nave and the natural valley. The organized world lies within the ever-turning realm. The Buddhists regard this sacred domain as both an ancestral paradise and the situation of the goal, the heaven reached by the deceased. Buddhist myths say that a plot of land congealed out of cosmic waters to form a band around the Great Father, becoming the Golden Wheel. The surface of these waters, just as the Brahmanical cosmology and the Genesis, is stirred by the dawn wind of creation. The foam of the water solidifies to form the golden circle, the Kankana Mandala, or the land of gold, Kankana Bhumi, the same as Huswang Sang's golden wheel, and representing the foundations of the earth. The surface of the land of gold is the round of the world. That the world wheel stood at the stationary pole is confirmed by the Buddhist account of the primeval wheel king, owner of a wheel whose steadfastness was the measure of his fitness to rule. He was a universal king, a righteous king, ruling in righteousness, lord of the four quarters of the earth. The four quarters were the four divisions of the wheel. The myth states not only that the revolving wheel remained in a stationary position, but that a fall from its fixed place would mean the death of the ruler. If the celestial wheel of a wheel-turning king shall slip down from its place, that king has not much time to live. This is, of course, exactly what happened. The wheel fell, the universal monarch died, and the world was thrown into confusion. One is reminded of the Zoroastrian world wheel called the sphere. This ever-turning wheel was the body of Zervan, or time, the planet Saturn. Throughout the primordial epoch, the wheel of the sphere remained in one spot, and its fall coincided with the collapse of the prosperous age. In many myths, Saturn's earth wheel acquires the poetic form of an enormous mill, churning out abundance. An old Icelandic tradition, for example, knew the mill as the fabulous possession of the Almlodior Frodi, under whose rule mankind enjoyed peace and prosperity. Recruited by Frodi to work the mill were two giant maidens who day and night turned the massive wheel, grinding out gold and happiness. But like all fabled wheels, Frodi's mill eventually broke down, causing the death of the great monarch. As shown by de Santillana and Van de Champ, Frodi was the planet Saturn. The authors whose work is titled Hamlet's Mill review widespread traditions of the cosmic mill from Iceland to Finland to India to Greece, finding many unexpected connections with the same remote planet. Not once, however, do the two writers wonder whether the tradition of the Saturnian wheel may have originated in the actual observation of the band around the planet. As the universal monarch, the mill lies in the farthest north and is regularly identified with the pole or axis of the world. The Finnish Kalevala locates the mill, here called the Sampo, on a great rock in North Farm, the polar garden of plenty. The hero Yamarinen forged the Sampo skillfully. On one side, a grain mill, on the second side, a salt mill, and the third, a money, example, gold mill. Then the Sampo ground away, the lid of many colors went round and round. This cosmic mill, too, broke down, bringing wholesale disorder. And if the finished Sampo is a late and fanciful version of the mill, the linguists now recognize the Sampo's connection with the older Skamba of Hindu ritual, and the Atharva Veda and the Skamba, meaning pole, appears as the golden embryo and the frame of creation, a mill-like edifice which poured forth the gold within the world. The Vedic hymn equates the mill Skamba with the whole creation. The body of Skamba houses the life elements and the gods. It is the ancient one, or great monster, whose veins are the four quarters of the world. Example, the wheel. That the cosmic mill is at once the universal monarch's body, and the created paradise will immediately explain why, in the general tradition, the collapse of the great wheel coincides with the death of the god king and the sinking of the lost land into the waters of the abyss. Nothing so confuses the underlying theme as the habit began long ago of conceiving the primordial wheel or island of earth in terrestrial terms. Could the landscape familiar to the ancients have produced the many interrelated images of the turning wheel? The one-wheeled chariot. The great god sits enthroned within the celestial earth as in a one-wheeled chariot. Thus, in Scandinavian rock carvings, the symbol, the solar wheel, the universal sign of the world wheel, may either appear alone or as in the wheel of a celestial wagon. All ancient gods seem to own such a wheel or chariot. The one-wheeled chariot, the Hindu Surya, clearly answer to the same cosmic form as the high-wheeled chariot of the Iranian Mithra. An early form was the famous sun wheel of the Babylonian Shamash. 15, the wheel of Shamash, held in place by a cord. 16, Triptolemos riding on a single wheel. The wheel of Axion or Ixion. 18, Hebrew Yahweh on a single wheel. Greek art depicts the great father Dionysus seated upon a one-wheeled chariot, much like that of the old god Triptolemos. In the Astronomica of Hyginus, one finds Triptolemos remembered as the first of all to use a single wheel. Argive tradition held that the father of Triptolemos was Trikelos, he of the wheel, whom some identify as the inventor of the first chariot. The Greeks of Chios knew the primeval god Gyropsios, he of the round wheel. Obviously, none of these wheels or wheel gods can be separated from the famous wheel of Ixion, set loose in the celestial conflagration. Set loose in the celestial conflagration. The Hebrew Yahweh similarly sits upon a single wheel. While modern commentators often competing interpretations of the cosmic wheel, the chariot of the gods, few stop to notice the link with Saturn. Cook, for example, after a prolonged study of ancient wheel symbolism, acknowledges Kronos, Saturn, as the old wheel or disc bearer, but is not inclined to draw any conclusions from this. The inventor of the wheel or chariot was the now distant planet. This is what the Chinese tells us when they report that the god king Huang Ti, who was identified with the planet Saturn, was the first to use the wheeled chariot. In more than one of the illustrations presented here, the cosmic wheel serves as the throne of the ruling god. L. Orange calls this the throne chariot, noting many examples in the ancient Near East. One of the divinities to sit upon such a chariot or wheel throne is the Hebrew Yahweh, whose seat is the wheel of the throne of his glory. The God's revolving throne is the circle of glory, that is, his own halo. If later art showed the God on a wheeled seat, the original motif has the God in it, for the throne revolves around the God. Here, for example, is a verse from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, revealing a little noticed aspect of the cosmic throne. O my seat, O my throne, come ye to me, and go ye round about me. O ye gods, I am Sa, luminous body. Therefore let me rise up, shine among those who follow, go around the great God. When the deceased king attains the celestial throne, he stands within the revolving circle of the gods, the followers of the central sun. The Ed Fu text calls this the throne of gods, for the divine assembly itself forms the will of the throne. 19, the Celtic god of the wheel. 20, Anglo-Saxon cedar with wheel. So as you can see, all of these images throughout these different civilizations are all speaking in regards to the same entity, the Great Father, aka Saturn. Denoted by the throne or wheel throne is a plot of Ta, land which first emerged from the cosmic sea. The creator brought forth the revolving circle of earth as his primeval seat. Raymond writes, the earth was caused to emerge from noon by virtue of the radiance of the sun god, who was believed to dry up the water around his primeval seat. This plot of created earth was the Han or homeland, which the text called Neset, the throne. The implications reach far beyond Egypt and bear directly on the wide-ranging myths of the cosmic chariots and primeval meals noted above. What one usually regards as two separate themes, the chariot of the sun and the world wheel, converge in a single image, the wheel of Saturn, the primeval sun, that the ancients denoted the sun wheel and the earth created by the one and the same sign was no coincidence. The city of heaven. The Saturn myth tells us not only that the planet god ruled the Holy Land as the first king, but that he founded the first city. Saturn's city means Saturn's earth. The great god lives fixed in the middle of the sky, dweller in the city. This is the pronouncement of the Egyptian coffin text. The cosmic city is the primeval place. I have come to this city, the region of the first time to be, a dweller in this land. Thus, the Egyptians invoke a celestial Memphis, the divine emerging primeval island, a celestial Thebes, the island emerging in Noon, which first came into being, a celestial Hermonthis, the high ground which grew out of none, or the egg which originated in the beginning, a celestial Elephantine, the city in the midst of the waters, or the throne of Ra, and the celestial Abydos, the Tor, the Taor, or the great primeval land. The integrated symbolism, though at times complex, never departs from the underlying ideal of enclosure around the central sun. The imagery concerns the original state of the world rather than the terrestrial city, states Clark. Depicted as the city of the dawn or the sun's coming forth. The tradition is universal. Mention Erech, and historians naturally think of the ancient city in southern Mesopotamia. But the Erech evoked in the ritual is no terrestrial habitation. It is Erech, the handiwork of the gods, the great wall touching the sky, the lofty dwelling place established by Anu. The creator An, or Anu, who is the planet Saturn, dwelt in the Eru Ula, the city of former times, not a city on earth, but the embryo of the cosmos, according to Van Dyck. Ruling from the midst of the sea, An shines the hero of the sacred city on the high. This is the city founded by An, place where the great gods dine, filled with radiance and awe. The hymns call it the great city and the place where the sun rises. All Mesopotamian traditions describe the celestial city as the original garden of abundance, the dais of plenty, the pure place. Its heart like a distant shrine. Its feasts flow with fat and milk and are rich with abundance. Thus did the Sumerians recall the lost land of Belmont as the primeval city. Belmont, the city thou hast founded. Lo, thy city drinks water in abundance. Lo, the moon drinks water in abundance. Egyptian and Mesopotamian descriptions of the cosmic city make clear that this habitation was the same enclosure as the lost paradise, and the identity persists in Hebrew and Muslim thought, which continually associates Adam's paradise with a cosmic Jerusalem. The light of Jerusalem above was provided by God himself, and the building of the wall of it was of jasper, and the city was purified like unto glass. One of the Psalms glorifies the celestial Jerusalem as sublime, an elevation in the uttermost north. The city of the king, the heavenly city, lay at the cosmic center. It was the first thing created by God, and it was surrounded by the primeval sea. The image observes favor is plainly borrowed from the Garden of Eden. The Hebrews also preserved the tradition of a primordial city of Tyre, similarly identified with Eden. And in Ezekiel we read, O Tyre, you have said, I am perfect in beauty. Your borders are in the heart of the seas. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering. The equation of the cosmic city in the original paradise finds numerous parallels in other traditions. The Persian Vara fashioned by Ahura Mazda is at once the first city and the lost paradise. The all-containing city of Brahma at the pole merges into the paradisal plain of Ea, or Ea. The imperial city of the Chinese Shanti coincides with the mythical paradise of Kwanlun, while the Mexican city of Aztlan, surrounded by waters, and the Mayan city of Tula, the enclosure in the sea, both appear as gardens of abundance. A coherent pattern unifies what are often assumed to be unrelated myths and symbols: the created earth, the lost paradise, the will of the sun, the revolving throne, and the cosmic city. While the mythical formulations vary, all point to the same band housing the central sun. Surely it is of significance that while these images are often disassociated in later myths, they constantly overlap in the earlier versions. The Aztecs may have forgotten that the lost city was the throne of the creator, and perhaps many Greek cults no longer remember that the island of the blessed was the turning wheel of the sun. But such connections are central to the world's oldest cosmologies. The interrelationships are clearly evident in the image of the mother goddess, who unites in a single personality the varied aspects of the celestial earth: paradise, will, throne, and city. The great mother weather, called Isis, Nut, Hathor, Mut, or Neith, is Neb en Neterta, the lady of the Holy Land, or the lady of God's earth. The island of the island of Earth, according to the pyramid text, lies between thighs of Nut. If one permits the Egyptian concept to illuminate later symbolism of the Mother Earth, one sees that the supposed distinction between earth goddesses and sky goddesses lacks foundation. God's earth means Saturn's earth, and this motherland circumscribed by the womb of the goddess is the enclosure of the central sun. Nor can one fail to notice that the hieroglyph for the goddess Nut, the holy abode, is the form of a wheel, an obvious prototype of the world wheels, so common to Eastern symbolism. Isis in its classical age was also symbolized by a wheel. Mesopotamian cults represented the goddess Ishtar, the womb, by a wheel. The Hindu goddess Rita and the wheel of law controlling the cosmic cycle, while the goddess Ea personifies the chakra or world wheel. The name of the Celtic goddess Arianrod means silver wheel. One is reminded also of the Enix wheel of Aphrodite and the wheels of Tai Chi, Nemesis, and Fortuna, all of which appear to reflect the common idea. As a stable, ever-turning circle of the cosmos, the goddess eventually became the abstract will of Mother Earth. The abstract will of Mother Nature. And when one realizes that the wheel served as the Great Father's revolving throne, it can come as no surprise to discover that in the archaic terminology, throne and goddess are synonymous. The seated Great Mother states Numen is the original form. Here's 21, the goddess Nemesis with will of fate. It says it's the original form of the enthroned goddess and also of the throne itself. As mother and earth woman, the great mother is the throne, pure and simple. The king comes to power by mounting the throne, and so takes his place on the lap of the great goddess, the earth. He becomes her son. In the Hindu kingship rites revealed by Hokart, the king is made to sit on a throne which represents the womb, but the identity of the throne and womb is as old as human language. The Egyptian hieroglyph for Isis, the womb of heaven, is a simple throne, but the same mother goddess encloses the cosmic city. The determinative of the city in the Egyptian hieroglyphs, or determinative of the city in Egyptian hieroglyphs, is simply the sign of the holy abode. The goddess Nut. The pyramid texts invoke the goddess in this your name in settlements. While settlements in this your name of the city, while the Book of the Dead extols the Great Mother as Lady of Terrors, lofty of walls, the Egyptian city goddess finds a close parallel in the Babylonian goddess Ura Azaga, whose name means brilliant town. Tyro, the mother goddess of Tyrians, gave the Greeks their word Tyrsis or Tyresis, walled city. To enter the celestial city is to find shelter in the primeval womb. Thus, the refuge of Delphi is the womb, and the Jerusalem, the city of the heavenly womb. In the New Testament book of Revelation, one finds a fascinating equation of primeval goddess and primeval city. In his vision, John beholds the great horde that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Who was this mother of harlots? The angel explains, and the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. That language points to the ancient rights of kingship, in which every local ruler took as his consort the city womb on the cosmic waters. And ranging over the myths and symbols of the created earth, paradise, wheel, throne, and city, one thus remains in the shadow of a single mother goddess, who contains within her womb the first organized domain in heaven, the island of Saturn's cosmos. The enclosure as prototype. In dealing with the myths and symbols of the Holy Land, one must reckon with the distinction, not always spelled out in ancient literature, between the celestial prototype and the terrestrial copy. Every sacred kingdom or city derives its character from the primeval dwelling, so that whatever was said of the enclosure above was also said of the imitative form constructed by men. From the concordant testimony of all traditions, writes Gunan, a conclusion emerges very clearly: the affirmation that there exists a holy land par excellence prototype of all other holy lands, the spiritual center to which all other centers are subordinate. Through identification, the sacred history of the race or nation emerges with the history of the gods, for each organized community viewed itself as a duplication of the celestial race. Each line of historical kings lead back to a first king who was not a man, but Saturn, the supreme power of heaven. In the same way, the race as a whole traces ancestry to a generation of gods or semi-divine beings who inhabited the earth raised in the creation. By this universal tendency, Saturn's paradise becomes an ancestral land, the place where history began. Thus, not every nation claimed that its ancestors descended from a race of gods who occupied a happy garden at the center and summit. It was with the utmost seriousness that the ancients laid out their first political settlements, taking the cosmic habitation as the prescribed plan. The purpose was to establish Saturn's kingdom on Earth, repeating the creator's defeat of chaos and founding a central authority whose power extended to a protective border, separating the kingdom of light from the powers of darkness and disorganization, the barbarians. Accordingly, the first sacred cities were organized as circular enclosures around the ruling lord. Ritual requirements superseded practical considerations, and even when geography and growth prevented or distorted the purely circular form, the sacred city was still conceived as a revolving enclosure. Symbolically, every Egyptian city lay within the shield or protective border of Nut, the great protectoress. The Babylonian map shows the land as a circle around the center. Here concludes Iliad. The earthly abode is the counterpart, Mered, of the heavenly abode. Hebrew thought repeatedly insisted the terrestrial Jerusalem was like a likeness of the city first constructed by God. A celestial Jerusalem was created by God before the city was built by the hand of man. The heavenly Jerusalem kindled the inspiration of all the Hebrew prophets, observes Iliad. The distinction between the local and the primordial city receives emphatic statement in the Syriac apocalypse of Baruch, when God asks, "Dost thou think that this is that city of which I said, on the palms of my hands have I graven thee? This building, now built in your midst, is not that which is revealed with me, that which was prepared beforehand here from the time when I took counsel to make paradise." Again, note the equation of the city Jerusalem and paradise. Equally clear is the primacy of the archetypal city in Hinduism. According to Iliad, all the Indian royal cities, even the modern ones, are built after the mythical model of the celestial city, where in the age of gold, in Io Tempore, the universal sovereign dwelt. Thus, for example, the palace fortress of Sigiriya in Ceylon is built after the model of the celestial city Alakamanda and is hard of accent for human beings. Symbolically, each Hindu state settlement stood within the mandala or circle, delineating a consecrated space magically protected from the invading forces of disintegration. The sanctified area observes Tucci by the line of defense which circumscribes it, represents protection from the mysterious forces that menace the sacred purity of the spot. This protective circle is above all a map of the cosmos. As documented by L. Orange, the circle around the center was the ideal form of sacred cities in the Near East, as typified by the residential cities of Dara and Firuzabad, whose circular form served as a precedent for the round city of Baghdad. The ideal pattern derived from the ancient conception of the cosmos, states L. Orange. The same symbolism attaches to the Roman Mundusa trench dug around the spot on which a new city was to be built. The enclosure served as a protective bound, ordaining the city as a renewal of the primeval homeland. In the old documents, the Roman cities were the urbs from orbis, round. The consistent pattern of the sacred territory shows the influence of a universal prototype, yet few researchers take the prototype seriously. When the creation myth speaks of primordial Heliopolis, Iraq, or Jerusalem, the analysis think only of the terrestrial city. One can, with far great assurance, insist that the local habitation never produces on its own a cosmic myth of any kind. In Egypt, it is the primeval sun who rules the original Heliopolis, Memphis, Thebes, Heracleopolis, just as it is the primeval sun who governs as the first king of Egypt as a whole. The city and kingdom repeat on different scales the same history, and this fact alone is sufficient to show that the history is not local, but universal. If the myths say that Egypt was gathered together for the primeval matter, forming an island around the sun, they say the same of the sacred city, whatever its name, that the ancients often forgot the distinction between their own city or kingdom and the celestial prototype was a natural result of the inseparable bond between the two. The local habitation inherited the mythical character of the celestial, so that the divergent actual histories of ancient nations lead back to the one universal history. It is in this sense that one must understand the legends of the first kings and primeval generations. Many Egyptian texts, for example, refer to a remote time in which the land was ruled by the followers of Horus. An inscription of a king Ranifer just prior to the Middle Kingdom recalls the time of your forefathers, the kings, followers of Horus. A text of Thutmose I speaks of a great fame, the like of which was not seen in the annals of the ancestors since the followers of Horus. The Turin papyrus places this primeval generation prior to the first historical king, Menes. Did these mythical ancestors actually rule terrestrial Egypt? In truth, the followers of Horus means not a generation of mortals, but the assembly of the gods. The ancestors were the light spirits of the celestial city, encircling and protecting the central sun. Just as the myths translate the universal monarch into the first king of Egypt, so also do they express the god king's companions as a primeval race from which all Egyptian nobility might claim descent. Every holy land on our earth was assimilated to the same celestial kingdom, and every race to the same generation of gods. The world navel. Through identification with Saturn's dwelling, each terrestrial kingdom or city of antiquity distinguished itself as the middle place, the center from which history took its start. Symbolically, each local holy land became the omphalos, or the navel of the world. Thus, the mythic navel constitutes a global motif of archaic symbolism. As documented in the separate studies of Roster and Muller, the ancient cities of Babylon and Nineveh, as well as Baghdad, Jerusalem, Hebron, Bethel, Shechem, and the entire land of Palestine. Numerous Greek cities, including Athens, the Muslim city of Mecca, and the countless other cities of Asia and Europe, were styled the navel, or the center of the earth. Just as the Egyptians conceived their land as the Middle Earth, Aguipte, the Chinese proclaimed their empire to be the kingdom of the middle. Early Japanese sources called Japan the center of the earth, or the middle kingdom of the reed plain, while the Mongolians regard their home as the middle place. Peoples of northern Siberia know the Yenisei as the center of the world. Ireland was once the kingdom of the Mede, or middle. In faraway Easter Island, the natives speak of their land as the navel, and in the Americas, the Zuni once called their town the middle place. The Inca city of Cusco signified the navel of the earth. So also did the Chickasaw of Mississippi regard their territory as the center of the earth. The reader may respond, isn't it perfectly natural that a people seeing other lands, nations distributed around them will come to regard their own as the center? This, of course, a common explanation of the universal habit. On closer examination, however, it becomes clear that the concept of the world navel reflects something more than narrow vision or tribal arrogance. The acknowledged religious center of the Greeks were Delphi, on the steep slopes of Mount Parnassus. Here was located the Omphalos, the navel, revered as the seat of Apollo and the center of the earth. But among the Greeks, Delphi was not alone in claiming distinction as the Omphalos. Similar claims were made for world navels in the Peloponnesus, at Elis, at Thessaly, and at Crete. Both the Aetolians and the Epirotes were called Omphalians, or people of the navel. Many competing seats of Apollo appear as Omphalos, according to Rasher. Rather than suggest narrow-mindedness, such repeated claims confirm a consistent memory. From high antiquity, the idea must have been passed down that Apollo's throne occupied the center. All local shrines certainly shared this tradition, but one must not mistake the imitation for the original. Just as one might say of Apollo's statue, this is the god Apollo, without intending a literal identification, so could the cult worshiper say of the local shrine, this is the throne of Apollo at the earth navel. That the statement comes from more than one locality only reinforces the general tradition. The truth was observed by W.T. Warren long ago when he declared Delphi to be a memorial shrine, an attempted copy of the great original. Clearly, the great original. The god's primeval home was not of our earth. Apollo, the polar sun, was not the only god to occupy this center. In Mexico, a Nahuatl hymn extols the god Almatioto as mother of the gods, father of the gods, the old god. This descended to the navel of the earth, engaged in enclosure of turquoise. He who dwells in the waters, the color of the blue bird. A Babylonian hymn located the god Ea at the center of the earth. The path of Ea was an Eridu, teeming with fertility. His seat there is the center of the earth. His couch is the bed of the primeval mother. Similarly, the Egyptian Osiris sits in judgment on the primeval mound, which is the middle of the earth, states Clark. In the ancient account of Sanchu Niatan, the great god El Kronos, Saturn, acquires supremacy in a certain place in the center of the earth. The earth navel in the original tradition is the inaccessible dwelling as the cosmic summit, which is why the Hindus could say of the fire god Agni, he is the head and summit of the sky, the center navel of the earth. Hebrew and Muslim thought constantly identifies the throne of Yahweh and Allah with the navel of the earth, but this navel is above, for the Muslim text states of the Kaaba or earth navel. Note that the center of the earth, according to a tradition on the authority of the prophet, is the Kaaba. It is the significance of the navel of the earth because of its rising above the level of the earth. Another source relates tradition says the pole star proves the Kaaba is the highest situated territory, for it lies over against the center of heaven. Both Jerusalem and Mecca, as earth navels, lie at the cosmic summit. The center of the earth and the pole of heaven both are intimately connected with the throne, observes Winsink. Similarly, Gnostic traditions surveyed by Young considered the polar region both the seat of the highest god and the navel of the world. That the Greek Omphalos received the appellation axis indicates an obvious connection with the pole. In all these traditions, of course, one has to contend with the confusion between the celestial earth and what we call earth today. It can hardly be doubted that ancient races eventually came to use the phrase world navel in connection with the terrestrial landscape. The original concept of the navel, however, is not complicated by ambiguous meanings of the earth. In the original tradition, the created earth is navel, pure and simple. Saturn's cosmos appeared as a central enclosure or navel of dry ground rising from the primordial waters. So it is not surprising to find that the symbol of the navel was the enclosed sun, the sign of the world wheel. The concentric circles or the dot and circle denoted in the Mediterranean area, the Omphalos, the navel of the earth, states Butterworth. Thus, in organizing their sacred cities in the form of a wheel, The ancients expressed the city's characters as navel. The enclosed sun, according to Newman, served as the life symbol of the womb navel center. It would be difficult to improve upon this definition. To reside within the life-containing navel is to dwell in the womb of the mother goddess. For the Omphalos, as discerned by Uno Holmberg, it is the representative of the Great Mother, not only in classical symbolism, but in Hindu and Altaic ritual also. Hence, Delphi, the Greek Omphalos, signifies the womb. The spouse of Hercules is Omphale, the female personification of the Omphalos. In the same way, Hindu ritual constantly identifies the mystic yoni or womb with the navel. Agni is Agni is born from the yoni or navel of the earth, while Brahma is the navel born. Such symbolism connects the famous navel with the primeval enclosure, Saturn's band, marking out the revolving island, which appeared in the cosmic waters, came to be remembered as the cosmic center where mythical history began. The ocean. Many ancient traditions describe a circular ocean or river girdling the earth. The gods, according to the Norse creation legend, made the vast ocean in the midst of which they fixed the earth, the ocean encircling it as a ring. By the Greek okeanos, the whole earth is bound. The Babylonians said of the nether river, all earth it encloses. Hebrew and Arabic cosmologies, according to Wensick, hold that the whole of the earth is round and the ocean surrounds it like a collar. In spite of the widespread belief, certain classical writers grew skeptical. Of the famous ocean stream, the historian Herodotus announced, "For my part, I cannot but laugh when I see numbers of persons drawing maps of the world without reason to guide them, making, as they do, the ocean stream to run all around the earth." Or again, the boundaries of Europe are quite unknown, and there is not a man who can say whether any sea girds it around either on the north or on the east. Such was the inevitable conclusion of historians, philosophers, once the world, the earth, lost its original cosmic meaning and passed into a figure of geography. Even today, conventional treatments of the mythical ocean perpetuate the misunderstanding. The cynics overlooked a most significant point. Originally, the ocean encircled the creator as a girdle. Okeanos was no terrestrial river, but the belt around the cosmic deity. The land which the ocean enclosed was the dwellings of the gods. Hesiod, for example, in his description of the shield of Hercules, an acknowledged figure of the cosmos, identifies the ocean as the rim of the shield enclosing a celestial paradise. The shield was a wonder to see, for its whole orb was a shimmer with enamel and white ivory and electrum, and it glowed with a shining gold. Within the shield's protective enclosure dwelt the great god and the lesser divinities. There also was the abode of the gods, pure Olympus and their assembly, and the infinite riches were spread around in a gathering of the deathless gods. The inhabitants of this circular land above celebrated a continual festival, for here grew grapes and corn in abundance, and around the rim, writes Hesiod, ocean was flowing with the full stream as it seemed and enclosed all the cunning work of the shield. As in the case of the world navel, the imagery makes sense only when one understands the created earth as the dwelling of the great God himself. Egyptian sources remove all possible doubt as to the celestial character of the encircling stream. The coffin texts say of the father of the gods, the river around him is ablaze with light. The same circular river is called a lake of fire. Ra appears as Ami-Mer-Neser, he who is in the fiery lake, while the throne of Horus is the lake of double fire. Actually, the Egyptian ocean or lake is simply the Tuat, the dwelling of Osiris or Ra. This is the lake which is the Tuat. This lake is filled with barley, example, grain, abundance. The water of the lake is fire. Containing the fiery waters of the abyss, the celestial river or lake encircled the world. The pyramid texts invoke the great circle in your name of the great surround, and enveloping ring in the ring that encircles the outermost lands, a great circle and a great round of the surrounding ocean. In the Egyptian symbolism, this watery circle is the band of the enclosed sun, the band which circumscribes the outermost limit of the cosmic dwelling. The ocean in the above text is the Shin-er, or the Shin-er, or the Great Shin. In the Egyptian language, the Shin, bond, or cord, signifies at once the band of the I-10, an ocean or river. One can properly term the circle of water the river of the cosmic bond, or the ocean of the core, pointing to the same interrelationship of the Egyptian word nu. Nut, the goddess, is the female personification of the cosmos or Shenban, but Nut also denotes the stream river, sea, encircling river as the border of the holy abode. Nut does give rise to the phrase, the ocean, the border of Nut. That Nut further means core and city only confirms the integrated symbolism. In none of this symbolism is there any suggestion of a terrestrial ocean, as detailed by arrangement with primeval waters form an enclosure around the resting place of the great god, perhaps resembling the channel which was made around sacred places later on. Encircled by the celestial river, the province of beginning becomes the island in the stream, or the pool. See, for example, the pool of Hermopolis. The celestial Abydos was the pool of Maati. The mythical waters are inseparable from the primeval matter of company of gods, which exploded from the creator, subsequently to be gathered into the circle of glory, Ku. The radiant gods or primeval ones revolved around the border of the cosmic ocean or lake. For the Egyptians, according to Raymond, imagined that after the phases of the primary creation were completed, these primeval ones lived in the vicinity of the pool. Their resting place, however, is portrayed as of the most primitive appearance, the bare edges of the pool. The gods occupy the border and revolve around it, as confirmed by the Book of the Dead. Hail, say these gods who dwell in their companies and who go around about the turquoise pool. Not in Egypt alone does the cosmic ocean form the band of the enclosed sun. Here is a Sumerian description of the Inger or river around the motionless Lord Enki. Thou river creatress of all things, when the great gods dug thee, on thy bank they placed mercy. Within thee, Ea, king of the Apsu, built his abode. They gave thee the flood and equal fire, rage, splendor, and terror, O great river, far-famed river. These are the waters of the cosmic sea Apsu, the waters which are forever collected together in the deep, corresponding to the Egyptian dwelling gathered together by the Creator. The oldest image of this encircling river or ocean is the ancient Sumerian sign for Kis, the all, the complete land, the cosmos. In the Babylonian world map, like the Egyptian ocean, the evolving string forms the border of the celestial land. As the womb of primeval birth, the Sumerian Inger river provides a close parallel to the Egyptian goddess Nut. Indeed, like Nut, the Sumerian Babylonian river goddess was conceived as the unifying core. The waters of Inger, Apsu, compose the Tarkula or Tarkulu rope or the Markasu bond holding together the created cosmos. Like the Egyptians, Sumero-Babylonians recalled the enclosure of the cosmic ocean as that which gave birth to the primeval sun. The god who illuminates the interior of the Apsu is Ninurta, the planet Saturn. And we'll do chapter 6 on the next video.